souvenirs with them, postcards and pictures, but they don't take postcards and pictures of people. They take them of buildings and trees. They take little photographs of the state of mind. If you were to say to anyone who's traveled in Italy as a tourist, well, what is Italy like? Oh, it's beautiful. There's lots of sunshine. The buildings are beautiful. Oh, it's so old. There's so many old things.
There are so many churches.
How? Why is it there are so many churches in Italy? And these buildings that the Romans built, why don't they fix them up? You know, you will see from the things that I'm saying that the state of mind of a Canadian traveler is very different from the state of mind of an Italian. We sometimes joke about Siena, and we say, as Canadians, you know this big campo they have in the middle of the city? Why don't they use that as a parking lot? They can park all their cars in there, no problem. You can see a different state of mind. Well, Canada is a state of mind.
When we come to Canada, we think that what is 200 years old for you is ancient.
Yeah.
It's historical. For us, it's, you know.
As Laura, as your professor is saying, in Canada, I live in a house that is 120 years old. And everybody says, oh, you live in an ancient house. And then I say, well, in Siena, I stay with my friends in a house that is 300, 400 years old. Nothing to that. If you say to yourself, if Canada is a state of mind, what is the state of mind? Well, we are no longer a colony of Britain. We used to be a colonial country. We are not like Americans next door. We have different attitudes, different values, a different sense of our identity. One of our great writers, Robertson Davies, called Canada the attic of the Americas. Now you think of a house. You have the first floor, the second, then you have the roof, and under the roof you have the attic.
Do you understand the attic?
Yeah.
Almost.
So when Robertson Davies, our writer, was looking at North America, he saw Mexico, he saw the United States, and then way up high was the attic called Canada. Now, you know, attics are very small spaces. Canada is a very large attic, but it has a very small population. We are maybe 60 million. The United States is 400 million. So even though we have a bigger country, we have a smaller population that lives in this natural landscape.
You're so few. You're as much as us.
Yes.
Not more.
If you come back to that first picture. Canada the blue, Italy the white. The same number of people who live in Italy live in Canada. Now, we have 3 distinct cultures in our country. And now we have a 4th. But the 3 basic ones were, first of all, the native Aboriginals. And you saw a picture of one, what they used to call Indians. We now call them Aboriginals or First Nations. Then there were 2 European cultures that came, the English and the French. And part of Canada is still very French, where they speak only French, they eat French food, they even have French laws. They follow the Napoleon Code rather than the rules, the civil law of England. I live in the English part of Canada, and many of my relatives live in the French part of Canada. So we have actually, if you wish, 2 cultural capitals. We have Montreal, which is French, and Toronto, which is English. So already you can see that the state of mind of Canada is unique and different. And you will notice that this state of mind has been formed first by its geography and second by its social landscape, its political landscape. The English and the French fought over North America for 77 years. They had a 77-year war. And they fought with the Indians and against the Indians. It's a long history of fighting. Now, you Italians know about this. Siena and Florence have been fighting for many, many years. Well, we have similar battles for similar types of territory. One of the first Europeans to come to Canada was named Jacques Cartier. And he came in 1534.
Cartier.
Now, his first reaction to the landscape was quite negative. He said, "I believe that this land is the land of Cain." Now, this is a reference to the Bible, the story of Cain and Abel. These were the two sons.
Do you understand
I
the story
understand.
of Cain and Abel, Cain e Abele? Il primo che è venuto è Jacques Cartier, ha detto questa
In 15...
34.
1534. Dice questa è la terra di Cain, di Caino.
Now, he meant by that, he was in the river and he saw the empty forests, and he didn't think that you could grow grapes here, you could make cheese. So his French state of mind was looking at Canada and giving a reaction. We have seen, and you will see, more positive views of Canada in the slideshow coming up. I think you should realize that our tradition, our way of defining who we are, is held in a very simple phrase. This is our national motto. A motto is a phrase that sums up how we believe. And we believe, very simply, in these things: law, order, and good government. You can see already that Canada is trying to control itself. We have the laws that make people honest. We have order, and because we have such an enormous country, we have to have a government that is very responsible and must learn to balance all the forces that could easily affect its future. Now, you've seen this morning some images already, and we're now going to go into the slideshow. Once we show it to you, if you wish to see it a second time, you may ask for that if it goes too quickly, but we would like you to take a look at it first. And we are going to, the slideshow is set on a very simple theme. The theme I took out of your textbook because we are looking at how modern artists in Canada, and this is a cultural center. This is the Siena Toronto Center. It is promoted by our director here. And our mandate, or our goal, is to introduce you as Italians to the way Canadians look at the world. So you have an understanding of a larger view. What we're going to look at today are landscapes. You will see beautiful pictures, but we are going to see landscapes that are unusual. The first thing I'd like you to see, because we've seen our social landscape, I want to tell you something. That Canada, as you know, is very young. We're going to show you some interesting pictures. These pictures take place over 100 years only. And this is a picture of an urban landscape going from the wilderness to a city in only 100 years. Take a look at this. Here is Calgary, Alberta in the late 19th century. There is a river, as you can see. And only 70 years later, you have a huge modern city. Now, I show you that because Canada's state of mind is one of always looking to the future. Because we are Europeans, like you are, or we come from a European idea. When Europeans first came to Canada, as you remember from Jacques Cartier, who said, "Oh my God, this is the land of kings," many other Canadian poets and writers and travelers have gone into the country, and they've had very different reactions. The question today, this morning, is when we look at our natural landscape, how do we relate to it? What is our relationship to this vast world? How do we perceive our landscape as Canadians? Well, here's the first idea. Many Canadians look at the Canadian landscape as something that is overpowering. Overpowering. And you'll see from these images the size of the country. You'll see that we have many, like Niagara Falls. This is actually not Niagara Falls, it's from the Yukon. Here we have the sublime landscapes of the prairies, which are enormous. Here's the Arctic with the northern lights. The landscape itself has many powerful, huge, broken pieces of land. And then, of course, we have the mountains. And these mountains are in the wilderness. And here is one picture of the sea. This is the Pacific Ocean that looks at us. Okay. Pardon? Oh, it's Newfoundland. I'm sorry. Arrow's right. That was the Newfoundland. Now, for other people who travel in Canada, and this could be Canadians, their reaction or their relationship to the landscape is one that you know about from your book. There is fear and terror. Now, this is not the sublime, as you learned, but this is simply fear for survival. The sublime disappears in Canada in many ways because the country and the wilderness is too strong for humans. And so, many of us view our landscape as very dangerous. And here are some images. This is the seacoast in a storm. Imagine being a fisherman there. Can you imagine not having an automobile and trying to walk through all of that? Here is part of the danger of nature. You could freeze to death sitting in that lake if you wanted to. You could certainly freeze to death. That's the Arctic. And as you can see, even in the cities, this is very common. We have snowstorms. And this is a picture of me walking to work in the morning. Now, if you live in Canada for a number of years, however, or if you are like Professor Faili or Professor